All right, and we are now recording this meeting. Excelente. Let me just see who else is on here. All right, Sean, if you don't mind checking attendance, and also if you'll keep an eye on the chat for me, I would really appreciate that too.
Yes, ma'am, I got you.
Thank you. I know we have kind of a small group, but that is okay. This did go out primarily to folks who are or are looking to become CERT program managers. And I am actually going to sort of look at some of the materials from a unit from the CERT program manager class. So I think I saw Jack on here. Jack, you just saw this weekend, and Raquel, but that's okay. It's still going to be good. And I also really want some discussion from you all. I wanted to have a topic, so we're going to talk about creating a vision for your CERT program, but this is also your time to ask any questions. Let us know what's going on with you and your CERT program. If you have specific questions, if you're having any challenges that we can help you with, we want to hear about that as well. Just as a brief update on what we're doing, FEMA does have an end of year survey on their the FEMA community website. I believe it's communities.fema.gov, and we will be pushing this out by email. I know it's only July, but if you know me, you also know that I'm a heck of a planner, so I'm already kind of thinking about the end of the year and where we need to be. It's really a way that FEMA keeps track of who has been doing what. It helps us too, because it helps us to know which teams are still active within the state. So I'm sorry, I have to take a sip of my Gatorade real quick. Note to self, don't eat sunflower seeds right before a forum, because you'll choke yourself. So we will be sending out the information about that. If you are not able to log on to that portal, we can help you with getting the information in. Ideally, I would like for all of our program managers to have access to their team, so we'll be helping out with that. If you're interested in creating a new CERT program, we do have a form on our website now where you can find that form. It's really hard to post in here because you can't copy it, but we do have that. If you go to readync.gov and then click on Get Involved, and then go to the CERT page and scroll all the way down to the bottom, there's a link to a Microsoft form that you can fill out so you can start your new CERT program. And you do also need to register on the aforementioned FEMA website to start that program. We will have more guides for you to walk you through all of that stuff in case you're brand new. There's also a form if you want to request a CERT class, and there's two different ways, two different sort of flavors of requesting CERT classes. One is you have all your own instructors, you're good to go, you just need help getting the class advertised on terms. That's awesome. We're very happy to put that on there for you, and all we need from you is the completed class roster at the end of the class so we can close it out in terms. Or maybe you want to put on a class, but you don't have enough trainers. Well, we are here to help you with that also. We do have trainers all across the state, and we will do our best. We're usually pretty successful in getting trainers to come to you. There's no cost for that. We'll send them to you. The more lead time you can give us, the better. So like, don't email me today and say you want to have a class this weekend. That's not probably going to happen. But if we have at least 2 months, would make me happy. Thanks. I think Sean's just putting some links in the chat there for our forums. Thank you for that. You know, give us a little bit of lead time when you want to have a class so that we can get trainers for you if you need them. readync.gov, that's the website where you can find those. I think all of y'all have heard about RevC by now, the Radiological Emergency Volunteer Corps, but I still like to push that if you have CERT volunteers who are interested and looking for something else to do. 77% of us North Carolinians do live within 50 miles of a nuclear power plant. So this is relevant for 3/4 of us, a little bit more. That's about as far as my math skills go, so I'm not going to push it on that. We have lots more information on that if you're interested in getting involved. And the same goes for Shelter Corps. This is really ramping up. this is primarily made up of CERT volunteers. And as many of you know, staffing shelters has long been a gap in North Carolina. The state, the counties, the municipalities, all put together, we do not have enough people to staff shelters after a disaster. And this is where we depend upon volunteers. And so our goal is to have this cadre of volunteers all trained up before we need them, so they'll have the training and be ready to go, and we can just send them out where we need shelters. And I'll be sending out some more information on that soon as well. All right, so what we're going to talk about in tonight, our topic is about creating the mission and the goals for your CERT program and why that's important and how you can do it. And it's not a whole bunch of slides, but once we get through this, then we'll have open question and answers. So if you have questions not specifically related to this topic, jot them down and we'll get those at the end. If you have questions that are relevant to the topics as we go, please just jump in. I don't know if you want to raise hands or, just unmute yourself and jump in. That's fine, because I love hearing from you guys. So we're going to talk about strategic planning so that you know what your mission and goals are for your CERT program and why that's important, and let you thinking about actually creating those goals and objectives. So these are the topics we're going to cover. So it is important to set goals in every CERT program, not just across the country, but even just across North Carolina, even just in a county. Every CERT program is different, and so there's no specific model. And you'll find this a lot throughout CERT literature that comes from FEMA. There is no one way of doing things, and that's on purpose, because your CERT program should reflect your community, and where you live is different from where I live. And we talk about Murphy to Manio and things being different. Up in the mountains, they don't worry so much about hurricanes and tropical storms. Yes, they can see flooding that could be a result of that. In the east, we're not so much worried about earthquakes or the flash flooding that we see in the mountains. We see different types of flooding, more storm surge that happens in the east. And so we want our program to really represent our community. And so as you're making your goals for your CERT program, you want to keep that in mind. So we're going to have a vision. The XYZ CERT program exists to fill in the blank. Why do you want to have a CERT program? And then we'll describe our objectives of how we are going to reach that goal. So this is where I want to hear from you guys. What could be a goal? You might also call this your mission statement. What is a possible goal or a mission statement for a CERT program? What are your ideas?
This is Jack Hopkins.
Jack.
Community education, I think, is a very important goal, and also preparing a team to respond to disasters.
I love it. That's great, because so Jack said, educating the public as well as having a team to respond to disasters. Luckily, knock on wood, disasters don't happen every day, right? So yes, we want to be ready to be a response asset to help out in our communities, but I think education is a huge part of what CERT programs can do. So when your team your town has their festivals and people have their tables out there, you can have your CERT program have a table and have some pamphlets that you can get for free from FEMA about preparedness for senior citizens, for people with children, for your pets. They have all kinds of great literature that you can get for free, and hand that out and just talk to the general public about preparedness. I always say, I'll talk to a group of a church group, a school group, a scout group, anybody who will sit still long enough to listen to me. I will go and talk to them about preparedness, because it really is that important. All right, I think Jack kind of hit that one out of the park, so I'm going to move on. So if let's say our goal is to train our CERT volunteers to educate the public and to be a response asset in case of a disaster or an emergency, then what are our objectives? How can we get to that goal? One of them might be, if I want my CERT volunteers to be able to educate the public, I first have to educate them, right? So we want to be sure they know what they're talking about. So we need some training for the volunteers to be able to talk to people. If they're going to be a response asset, we need to train them for that. So one of our objectives could be training overall, and then within that objective, it could be, what are we training for? So we could have different categories within training. What would be some other objectives maybe that would help us reach our goal to do public education and being a response asset? Can anyone give me one more?
Identifying local stakeholders where you can get an active audience.
Yeah, right. So we're going to do all this training and we want to do all this education. Who are we going to educate? And who is there? Who is in our community that might want to listen to us? That's a great one, Andrew. Thank you for offering that one. So you can see kind of where we're going with this, how we're building this from where we want to be, and then we're taking a step backwards and saying, how do we get there so we can make it to that overall goal? This is super. I love this stuff. All right. So for our goals, as I said, it could also be your mission statement. It should be clear and brief, and it says what you will do, who are you doing it for, and where will you do it? So this example on the screen just says the XYZ CERT program will manage disaster relief operations in the neighborhoods of CERT volunteers until professional responders arrive. Is that a reasonable mission statement? So it says what we will do. We will manage disaster relief operations. Who are we doing it for? People who live in the neighborhoods of the volunteers. And well, wait, that the who is sorry. The where is the neighborhoods, the who is the people who live in the neighborhoods. And what's missing here, and I should rewrite this slide, is the when. How long are we going to do it? Until professional responders arrive, right? So this goes to my favorite thing, which is SMART goals. You all have probably heard of this before. So you want your goals to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And this isn't just about CERT. This is for anything that you want to do. If I just say, I want to fly to the moon, that's great. That's awesome, but it's not a SMART goal. So what they have as an example here, my goal is I want to provide 2 CERT basic training courses each calendar year. It's very specific. It says exactly what I want to do. It is measurable because I will be able to tell when I have completed 2 classes. Is it achievable? Maybe, maybe not. I think in theory, absolutely it is achievable, but I can also tell you for my home team, Apex CERT, there were times in our early days where we would attempt to put on a class and nobody would register for it. So if you don't have any students, there's not much point in taking the class. For this exercise, let's say that it is achievable, but we also know sometimes we need a plan B or C or D. It is certainly relevant because we need to get more volunteers trained. So it goes right to our mission of what we want to do. And then the time bound part of it is we want to do this every calendar year. So 2 classes a year. This is a SMART objective. So think about for your own CERT program, what is your main goal that you want to do? And then what are your objectives that will get you to that goal? And as you're writing those out, make sure that they are SMART. I think a lot of people do miss that time-bound part of it. And that's just important because it gives you sort of a deadline and it just makes it a little more attainable in my mind. Plus, I always work better with a deadline anyway. If you give me 10 years to do something, I'll be doing it at 9 years and 11 months, right? So give yourself those and make your time bound reasonable as well. So 2 training courses in a year, I think that's very reasonable. All right, so how do we set these program goals? First of all, talk with your sponsoring agency. What do they need? What do they want your CERT program to do for them? What are some things in your community that you could really help with and that people want your help with? in Apex, and y'all, I know I always talk about Apex, but it is my home team. It's where I started as a volunteer before I got the paid job here. The fire chief of Apex actually came to us, and because we don't have our own EMS anymore, because it all got swallowed up by Wake County, he asked for us as CERT volunteers to do the firefighter rehab training that is available as a CERT supplemental training module, because it would be very beneficial to them when they're going to be at a large fire and they'll be there for an extended period of time. They may not have enough ambulance crew to help with that. And so they want the ambulances there to help with patients who actually need help. If we can do the firefighter rehab, that takes some pressure off of them. So that's a great example of, knowing what it is that your community needs, what your sponsoring organization needs from you. It could be lots and lots of different things. That's just one example. So the next thing we're going to do is to create our goal that we've been talking about, and what are the objectives to help us reach that goal. And then let's take that back to our sponsoring organization and our other stakeholders, like Andrew mentioned, and say, hey, this is the overall goal that we've come up with, and here are some objectives we think will help us get to that goal. What do you think? Does this jive with what your plan is for this CERT program? It's really important to have a good relationship with your sponsoring agency where you can have these conversations and bounce things off of each other. It makes your CERT program much more successful, or better chance for success if you're able to get that kind of help. So we do want to check if we're making progress toward reaching our objectives. So if we said we're going to do 2 basic training classes in a calendar year, and it's already September, and we've done 1, we better think about getting that second class done, right? So keep up with what your objectives are to make sure you stay on top of them. And then maybe annually, I think annually is a good time to sort of take the pulse of the program and see what's going on. Do these objectives still fit with what we're trying to do? We talked about this past weekend. We just did a CERT program manager class in Raleigh, and there were several folks there who are starting brand new teams. And so for them, they may have some goals that are not recurring goals. Maybe they have a goal to obtain a sponsoring agency. That's great, but once you've done that, it's done. That's not something you have to do over and over. So some goals, once you reach them, they're done. Other goals, like having 2 classes a year, that could be a recurring goal each year. And then do develop your new goals and objectives as your program grows and matures, or the needs of your community may change as well. All right, so we just sort of said this, check your goal and objectives to keep them in line with what your community needs, and keep checking that. This is just like when we do CERT Size Up. The final step in Size Up is repeat and make sure that everything is still working well. Your overall goal is not likely to change. So like Jack gave us the goal of doing public education and being a response asset, that probably will stay your goal for the life of your program unless something major changes. But your objectives to get to that might change a little bit. So maybe you've already got a bunch of folks who are trained to do some public speaking and talk about disaster preparedness. Maybe you want to add something else in there, like let's have a group that specifically targets the senior citizen community to talk about preparedness. And you could make kind of subsets to your goals and make them more specific. So we do identify our needs. I think I went over these in more detail than I should have on the first slide. So yeah, we want to run these by our sponsoring agencies so that they kind of approve them. They may have some other ideas besides the things that we have thrown out there that they're going to share with us and ask us to identify. How do you know what your community's needs are? How can you find that out? How about asking someone? I know it seems rather obvious. Who is a great person in a position to tell you what a community's needs are? Go ahead. Andrew's reaching for his mouse, so he's going to say something.
Well, the emergency managers have to fill out the annual threat assessment. So.
Exactly. Yeah. talk to your county emergency managers. They don't have to be your sponsoring organization. I think it works really well to have your county EM sponsor your CERT program, but the model started with Los Angeles Fire Department, and we still see a lot of CERT programs that are affiliated with fire departments. I still think that's a really great fit too. But it's also a great idea to know who your county emergency manager is and talk with them and say, hey, what's going on in our community? What are some needs that we have right here that we could help you with? So ask them, just have conversations. Things that will help you figure out your community's needs. What hazards do you have in your community? I mentioned Rev C a little bit earlier. I live about 11 miles from a nuclear power plant. I don't lose sleep over it at all. I think I'm very, very safe. However, is it on my list when I think about preparedness for myself and my family? Sure. I just want to be aware of it and know what sort of alerts I need to know for it. And let's educate the community about that as well. Those of you who aren't right here in Central North Carolina probably aren't aware, or maybe you are. I don't know how widely it made it on the news, but last week on Monday, Sharon Harris Nuclear Power Plant sirens started going off at about 7:30 in the morning, and they were still going off about 40 minutes later. And what happened was they were supposed to do a silent test just to test the software and make sure everything was working. And apparently somebody forgot to check the little checkbox that said silent. And it was an accident. Accidents happen. But it scared a lot of people because they thought, why are the sirens going off at the power plant? And one of my point in all this is a great opportunity for education, because a lot of people, I heard people saying, I didn't even know there was a power plant in this county. And people are saying, what are we doing? Are we supposed to evacuate? We need to do more education. So know what the hazards are in your community and how people need to know what's going on there. What is the emergency management system? So we do have the Wake County Emergency Management here. Apex, the town of Apex, just recently hired their first ever emergency manager for the town. The city of Raleigh has emergency management. What is it where you live? Is it county? Is it town? Who are the people that are directly involved with it? So that would be nice to know how things work in your county. Have there been other community-based public safety efforts? Has somebody tried to start a CERT program before and it just didn't fly? And if so, why? Like, what happened? Why wasn't it successful? What could we do differently if we want to try again? So see what you can find out from people who've been around for a while. Are there any homeowners or businesses that do anything with preparedness? You might want to look into that. And then what support is available? And really, I can't think of the word. Monetary support is great. It's really nice to have some financial backing, but even just sort of moral support goes a long, long way. You can run a CERT program with little to no financial backing. Always nice to be able to buy some equipment. So here's a list of some people you might want to talk to find out about your community needs. We already mentioned the emergency manager, fire, law enforcement, your neighborhood associations, good to talk to, your community leaders, so your county commissioners, town council members, the mayors in your county, find out what they need. And the transportation department could be a good source of information for you. And is there a college or a university in your area? That could be a great place to find out about community needs, and could also be a great place. Maybe you could help start a campus CERT program to respond on the campus of that college or university. And then let's not forget about helping our businesses to be prepared for emergencies and find out how you can help them. And then maybe they can also help you by providing some tangible support for the CERT program. So your vision and how you promote the program they do overlap. So once you have that vision, our CERT program is going to provide public education and be a response asset. Then we can help promote that program to people to whom that is relevant and talk to those folks who would be interested in those topics. And so that knowing what our program vision is helps us to promote it. So if I just say to people, hey, I have this CERT program and it's really great, and they say, really, what do you do? And I go, well, it's just a really great group and you should help us out. That it's not going to get a lot of support, right? So you want to tell them, here's what we do, here's who we are, here's why we exist, so that you can fill them in on all that. And then ask for input and welcome input from others. If they say, hey, why don't you guys, help with parking at our 4th of July celebration? Is that something that you could support? Maybe so, maybe it's not. And, just listen to what folks have to say and see if you can incorporate their ideas. So we want to teach folks about what the CERT program is, what is CERT, how it has been used around the country. Have you guys done any looking into other CERT programs? It is in every US state and territory and is really gaining popularity internationally as well. Right, Andrew? Yep, Andrew has taken the class to Honduras, which is great, and done some training there. But look around and maybe join the National CERT Association, where you can hear from other folks, primarily in the US. We do have some other members from other areas. I say we, I am on the board for the National CERT Association. So I'm maybe a little biased, but it is a great group, and it's always wonderful to learn from people who are kind of in the same position that you are. Their community may be wildly different from yours, but they may have figured out something and can help you to get through some sticky problem, or share ideas for training. What should we do for our training meeting in August? I have no clue. Talk to others and see what their ideas are. So once we have that overall program goal and we set our objectives, keep it small at the very beginning. I love that people starting a new program have a lot of enthusiasm and they get really excited about it. And I never ever want to, tamp that excitement at all. But if you set your goals too high, or you give yourself too many objectives in the very beginning, you might get frustrated because it's too much to take on all at once. So far we've talked about like 2 different objectives that we could have for our goal. I think 3 to 5 maybe is a decent number of objectives for the first year of a program. Don't overextend yourselves. It also will depend on how many people are involved that can help with those objectives. A lot of times when we see a CERT program starting, there's 1 or 2 people that are really behind it and they're doing the bulk of the work. So try and find others that you can delegate to, because you don't want to burn out. So we're going to test those goals and objectives and have other people look at it and see what they think. If the goal doesn't meet your community's needs, then you need to get some help from someone else to say, well, what would be a better option for us to do? This is also going to help people in the community feel like they have some buy-in to your group, because you have asked for their feedback, and they're going to be a stronger supporter if you loop them in from the beginning. So periodically, and I said this before, but I think annually is a great time to kind of check and see if we're making progress. Is everything still a good fit? So maybe at your January meeting, you can look at everything and figure out where you are and if you need to make any changes. So how do you review your objectives? Maybe make yourself a goal for each calendar year and decide how you're going to get to those goals. And remember, they're going to be SMART goals. So we do have them time bound. That T in SMART stands for time bound. So we'll be able to tell when we have reached that goal. And then next year we'll do it all again. There are some planning resources online. If you Google strategic planning, they talk a lot about business models, but you maybe look at some for nonprofits or something, and there are other local resources that can help you with doing some strategic planning. So as you get started, think about your SWOT analysis. And I know that that's a great acronym, but let me just talk through these. Okay, so SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. For your particular group, what are your strengths? What do your members, your volunteers, what do they bring to the table, and what is your group particularly good at? Think about the skill sets of the folks who are involved with your CERT program and how you can utilize that to keep your team going and to bring new members in. Where are your weaknesses? What could you use more help with? I've been trying for a couple of years in Apex to find somebody who really loves to write grants because not everybody loves it, and I end up getting stuck with it, and I need help because my plate is very full. So that's one of our weaknesses. What are yours? What are your weaknesses for your CERT program that you need some help with, and where could you find somebody to fill those gaps for you? There are so many opportunities out there. You just have to find them, and knowing where to look for them can sometimes be tricky. And sometimes it's something that you never would have thought of. Like, we were approached by the Carey JC's program because they run a concession stand for the NC State football games, and they make a lot of money selling Chick-fil-A sandwiches at NC State football games, and they need people to help run that concession stand. It has nothing whatsoever to do with CERT, not a thing. But you know what? They will give us $100 for each person who shows up, and each year we make more than $1,000 selling Chick-fil-A sandwiches. So maybe that particular opportunity doesn't give us a chance to promote our CERT program, but it's great for fundraising, and now it gives us some money where we can use that for training equipment or whatever we might want to do for our program.
Hey,
Now, where I say I
Samantha,
don't, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
but before we move on, for those folks who can't see the chat, David made a good point, and he says, don't forget to reevaluate your team's performance after an incident or an event.
Yes.
And that just allows for adjustments that will fill gaps and shortfalls.
That's an excellent point. So we want to do like an after action review, and it could be after a training event or after a real event. So if we did stand up a pod or we helped out in a shelter during a hurricane, once it's over and we've all caught our breath again, let's do that AAR and talk about what things went really well and what could we do better next time. Thank you, David, for that. That's an excellent point. So the one thing I don't like about the SWOT analysis is that the word threat sounds very, well, threatening. I know that's redundant, but I would rather see that word be challenges. Like, what are some challenges? What are some hurdles that we're faced with that we may need to figure out how we can get past them? Like, we don't have any money and we need some money to run this CERT program. That's a challenge. What can we do to overcome that? There are many CERT programs that do incorporate as 501c3s, independent nonprofit organizations, and then that gives you the opportunity to do some fundraising and to apply for grants, because most grants out there, the majority of them, you have to be a 501c3. And the reason for that, especially if it's a large corporation that's giving the money, is for them it's a tax write-off. And so they're not just going to, give me money as Samantha Royster because I asked for it, because they're not going to get a tax break for that. But if they donate to your CERT program and you have an EIN or an employee identification number that you get when you become a 501c3, now they can deduct that from their taxes, so it ultimately saves them money. So anyway, that's an example of a challenge. Maybe a challenge is trying to get more people involved. How do we recruit more volunteers to be part of our CERT program? So start looking at other places in the community that you could draw people from. So anyway, I just like challenges better than threats because I just do. So we're going to identify opportunities and then look for factors that are helpful or harmful to making that opportunity a reality. And again, that's like looking for those challenges that may need to be overcome or looking for those opportunities. So we're going to develop new goals as the community's needs change. Make sure that your goals reflect those changes, and you can repeat your whole goal setting process as need be. All right, so goals are important to have. You're going to have your overarching goal or your mission statement, and then have your objectives, your SMART objectives to get you to that. And then remember that reassessment is a really important part of that. So make that part of your annual calendar to assess those goals and make sure that we're still on track and we're doing things that still match our community and it still is a need that we have. So that is what I had for the presentation. I'm going to stop sharing this. I think if I can find my stop sharing, there we go. And I would love to hear from you all about what's going on with you and your CERT programs. If you have any questions or comments related to the presentation or really anything else, this is the open floor time.
Sam,
Yes.
Western Branch Training Week at Mitchell Community College in Statesville for our Charlotte and West folks.
Yep.
On Thursday is going to be the American Red Cross Sheltering Fundamentals class.
Yep.
For the Shelter Corps. And on Friday, there's going to be the ARC Shelter Supervisor class
Yep.
in the morning. For
And they're
anybody
also doing a scenario too.
on a scenario.
A setup exercise.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yes, thank you for that. I see a couple other folks from the West who are on this call, so that's a great opportunity. And I've been talking with David Leonard, who's our Human Services Branch Manager, and he is one of the instructors for this. And in order to get more folks involved in Shelter Corps, we're going to be offering these at each of the training branch weeks. I hope forever. This is going to be like a standard thing. So the next one after Western will be the Central Branch, which I think is October. I think it's October. So I'll try to send those out. I did send an email out about this one. So if you're interested in Shelter Corps, we do require that you have that Shelter Fundamentals class. So this is an opportunity to get that. And if going to Statesville is too far from wherever you live, just hang tight because there will be more coming. Thank you for that, Andrew. What else is going on with y'all?
Hi, Samantha, Leslie Geisy
Hey,
here
Leslie.
in Brunswick. How are you?
Great. How are you?
Good. So we finally, we had to wait for our approval process from the county for funding purposes. And, obviously we are emergency management and some of these tasks are a little bit easy, but when you talked about, starting small, a little bit of the problem that I'm coming across is, we've been approved for 100 CERT volunteers.
Wow.
And I know, but it's a lot to start off.
It is.
And and I do think to some degree, this big idea, but we also have to, if the money's there, as you know, in government,
Yes.
we have to utilize it. So, I mean, are you suggesting maybe 100 is way too unmanageable at first? Or maybe how to tackle this?
Is there a time limit on that? Is it like within a year?
A year?
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
within a year.
that is a lot. So when I teach a CERT basic training class, I limit it to 30 people. You can try doing more than that. I think it's hard to really do the hands-on stuff and the class just gets a little unruly if it's much larger. So that means you would really need to try to work in at least 3 classes during the year if you wanted to get those volunteers trained up. I'm not saying that that's impossible. It's just whether you have the base there to get those people in. And I think you all have been doing some like TV advertising and stuff, right? News.
No, we haven't. Not that I know of yet.
Okay.
I feel like I'm the only one which, as far as who's being the program manager,
Yeah. Maybe that was.
I feel like I'm probably the only, I feel like I'm probably the kind of sitting in on a lot of these courses, and I'm very interested in seeing this program, especially with our active hurricane
Yes.
seasons here. We definitely, after going through Florence, we see a huge need for a CERT team.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, the people there was one many years ago, but none of the people that kind of ran that are around to ask questions or maybe why it no longer exists. But they're definitely interested in bringing it back. And we have a huge political support from our commissioners.
Wonderful.
So I feel like we have all the backing, but I do feel a little in over my head and just getting it started. And I know
Sure.
maybe David had talked about bringing you down to Brunswick County at one point. If you know, I know it might be hard to come to the beach in the summer, but if you you know, and actually having kind of helping us work through some of these things,
Yeah.
because
Oh, I'm happy to. You know, if for whatever reason I can't get there in person, we can always meet like this. I know it's not ideal,
Okay.
but I'm happy to do that as well. I think one thing to keep in mind as you're looking at growing your numbers is remember that your CERT program is more than just the CERT basic training class. I'm a huge proponent of seeing CERT programs have monthly meetings, because then you get together as a team, you get to know each other, you do a little bit of training each month, and you know, you could re-examine some of the stuff that you did in basic training and learn new skills. And that I always think it's great. Let anybody come to your monthly meetings, even if they haven't taken basic training yet, but just know they can't be a full-fledged member of the team until they do take basic training. And we've gotten a lot of members on the Apex CERT that way, because we put information out to the community about our topics, and they'll come to a couple of meetings and they just get hooked, and then they end up taking the class and becoming active members. So think about that, and also activities you could do around your community. Maybe do a talk on disaster preparedness somewhere at a church, or even put on a disaster preparedness kind of fair where you could, you know, educate people and at the same time promote the CERT program and say, by the way, we're going to have a class coming up on such and such a date where you can learn even more about this, and you can join our CERT program if you want to. So I think just take it in smaller bites. Don't think about getting 100 people all at once. You do have a year to do that. So let's focus on getting 30 at a time.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Hey, Sam, it's David.
Hey, David.
How are you?
I'm great.
Hey,
I hope you are.
I'm doing well, thank you. You know, as Leslie said, we are trying to get the team, the concept up and running. We've had some great volunteer participation from Bud. He's kind of taken some lead there. Leslie's helping out. I guess my role as the director for emergency management, I did the important part. I got the money.
That's a great part.
But you know, when we start talking about, you know, 100 people in our vision of what the team's going to be, is you got to look at what our clientele is, and I think everybody has to, you know, what the pool looks like.
Absolutely.
And our pool in Brunswick County is very diversified. We have a ton of people that have retired to the area but still want to be involved. I mean, I was sitting in the parking lot of Harris Teeter the other day talking to Max Smith, you know, about 6 o'clock in the evening, and his truck pulls up, and it's this big burly kind of guy in this truck, and he's like introduces himself. He's like mega experienced with FEMA and
Awesome.
you know, all these little different pieces, and he's just looking for something to help keep his time occupied and give back to the community that he now lives in. And we see that a lot.
Yeah.
And that's a great start for us. One of the other things that, yes, well, let me digress real quick.
Sure.
Understanding that the people all have to be eventually trained to be part of the team, and that's, you know, that's the goal, and that's some of the stuff that we'll work with the state and with some of our private partners like Bud that are trainers that we can bring in to help, you know, curb the load, because everybody's got something else to do.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, not all 100 will have the basics, and then we're going to take, and I'm saying 100, that number just was what was given out. But let's just, you know, with some of the specialty stuff that the vision of where our team goes, between we're wanting to incorporate our our Aries OxCon team,
Great.
some Rev C stuff because we're a risk county. So,
Yep.
and then some advanced search and rescue too. So,
Love it.
and they're just general pieces. And you mentioned earlier in your presentation about how do you fit CERT members into the day-to-day operation? Because if you rely on them, only during emergencies, they may or may not be there. They may or may not
Exactly.
be fresh. I, in my previous life as working for a fire department, being an accreditation manager, I had the opportunity to go to Gilbert, Arizona.
Mhm.
Their fire department was up for accreditation, and they have a CERT program that rivals their whole fire department roster.
Wow.
They have I swear I want to say it was like 200 and something volunteers on their books.
That's
And
amazing.
they just do different aspects. They got teams that come in and help with fire inspections. They got teams that come in and they have the departments invested, and they have a CERT team group that just comes in and does support to major medical calls and
Fantastic.
structure fires.
Yeah.
They respond in a vehicle, they pick up family and help kind of tie the loose ends and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
then you've got shelters and feeding and,
Yep.
disaster response as
I love
most
that.
of the people come into. But hey, Jay, how are you?
Here he is.
He got too close. I can see him. So,
Just
but
came in
yeah,
from mowing
so
the horse pasture.
yeah, so it's it's a big project overall because we're trying to get it lifted off the ground. But I think
Yeah,
it's
that's great.
something that, like you said, we get it started, get it rolling. I think
Yeah.
we've got a pretty good solid basis for a core team
I
on
love
our
that.
south end.
Yep.
So, but I do want to bring you and get some other folks together and just kind of have a little powwow so we can
Absolutely.
just kind of reach out to other folks that have teams as well,
Yeah.
and pull off their successes and ways that we can help the community in the long run.
I love it. And I love a lot of the things that you said there, including different things that you can use your CERT program for. And Andrew Ferguson, who's on this call, you probably haven't met. He's out in Alexander County, so a little ways from you. But he also runs a search and rescue program under the CERT team, and we do an Apex as well. And it's true wilderness search and rescue. It's not the light search and rescue like we do in CERT. And I think it's great that you want to put that in as, sort of a specialty team within the CERT program, because not everybody that does CERT wants to do wilderness search and rescue. But, those that do, I think it's super for them to have the CERT training for a background as well. Oh, Jay says that CERT is the Army and the SAR team is the Special Forces. That's what he says. You can have a little extra there. And I could see, something like if you have an overall Brunswick County team or program, a CERT program for all of the county, you could also have, a Leland team and an Oak Island team, and that for the folks who live in those communities to respond in their own neighborhoods. But I know Brunswick's not huge. You could certainly respond countywide. But it's interesting as you move forward to think about how you can organize your program. And don't limit yourself either to the things that are in the CERT training manual, because anything that you as the emergency manager, if you ever find yourself saying, boy, I wish I had 10 people who could help me get this job done, think about your CERT volunteers, because they want to be called on and they want to help you. I mean, before COVID, we never thought about doing vaccine clinics. And I can tell you that across North Carolina and across the country, CERT volunteers put in tens of thousands of hours working vaccine clinics, because there's a whole lot more to a vaccine clinic than just putting needles in arms. There's traffic control, there's parking, there's the data entry part of it. There's watching the folks after they get their vaccine to make sure they're not having a reaction. All of those things can be filled by CERT volunteers. What about just having somebody in the EOC answering the phone for you during a disaster? How many times does your phone ring during the day when there's a hurricane heading your way? you can train them to, how to answer certain calls. So I'm really excited about Brunswick County, and I'm there. You tell me when you want me, and I'll bring my sidekick with me. And I actually have a cousin who lives in Leland, so I even have a free place to stay. So we'd love to come down and help any way we can.
And David, interestingly enough, I'll be there because your sheriff's department's adopting some of my equipment, so I have to come down there and train. So I'll hook up with you.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Just let me know when you're in town.
Super. Yeah, Andrew's got years of experience with CERT and search and rescue, and working very close with his emergency manager. I'm going to brag on you. He's telling me to be quiet. Yeah, that'd be great. If you guys would connect, that would be wonderful. What else is on your minds, anybody? I see Bud is in his hotel room. You must be in Houston.
Yeah, I got checked in at 3 o'clock this morning.
Oh my goodness.
And then
Bless
I had
you.
to be
Thank you
unmuted,
for
so-
doing that work. I know how important that is.
Who's going to the conference next week?
Oh, I don't think anyone. Hey, Andrew, check out the chat. David just put his contact information in there, so you can get that. Is anybody going to the National CERT Conference in Washington, D.C. next week? Anyone? Anyone? Sean's going. Jay's going.
Yeah, I'm gonna make people look ugly.
Yeah, Jay is going to teach a moulage class at the CERT conference. And we're also going to do a talk on Rev C. We're taking that to the national stage to encourage other CERT programs in other states to develop something like Rev C. And then I'm also doing a talk on animals and disasters. So that weds my two loves of emergency management and my previous career in veterinary medicine. So it's going to be a great conference, not just because we're speaking 3 times, but there'll be a lot of other great stuff going on as well. I'll give a full report to everybody when we come back. Well, guys, I've had you on almost an hour, and I don't want to steal any more of your time. I'm happy to stay as long as you want to stay if you have anything else to discuss or any questions. Otherwise, I'm going to turn you back to your regularly scheduled programming. It's always good to see you all, and I appreciate you taking the time to be here.
Thanks, Sam. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Sam.
All right.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Sam.
everyone.
Okay.
Thanks, y'all.
Yeah, see y'all tomorrow.
Yep, sounds good.